Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are so glad you're here.
Yeah, good to be back.
Today, we're looking at a film that, on paper, it just shouldn't work. It kind of defies all logic for how you make a blockbuster.
It really shouldn't. If you were a studio executive, say, back in the early 2000s, and someone came into your office to pitch this, you would have laughed them out.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure some executives probably did laugh.
I think they did.
Just look at the elevator pitch for a second. Okay, so we're going to make a romantic comedy.
Standard stuff. I'm with you so far.
But the leads are a rusty little trash compactor and, a flying egg.
Yeah.
And neither of them speaks a recognizable language. It's just beeps and clicks and whirs.
Right. And the entire first, 40 minutes of the movie, it's essentially a silent film.
It is. And on top of all that, it's also a sci-fi epic about the literal end of the world. And to top it all off, it's this incredibly sharp social commentary on obesity, consumerism, and, the total collapse of the global environment.
And it's a Disney movie.
Exactly. It's a G-rated film that's supposed to sell toys to kids. It makes no sense.
Which is why today we are unpacking Pixar's 2008 masterpiece. And I do think it's a masterpiece, Wally.
A huge gamble that just paid off in a way that really very few films ever do.
Time magazine didn't just call it a good movie. That's not what they said. They named it the best movie of the decade.
Not best animated movie.
No. Best movie, period. Full stop.
That is a massive claim, especially when you think about the competition in that decade. So our mission today is to figure out how did they pull this off?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce here?
We're going to deconstruct the production, the tech, the philosophy behind it all. We've gone through everything we could find, the original production notes, some really nerdy technical breakdowns from the VFX teams.
Yeah.
We've got the critical reviews from when it first came out and some really fascinating video essays from people like Channel Awesome and the Sardonicast crew who really, dig into the film's legacy.
We're going to look at everything from and this is surprisingly complex, the actual physics of the camera lenses they simulated.
Right.
All the way to the sort of political firestorm this quote-unquote cartoon managed to ignite.
But first, let's set the stage. For anyone out there who maybe hasn't seen it in 15 years or, somehow missed it entirely, we need to explain the world of this movie.
Yeah.
Because it is bleak.
It is incredibly bleak. So the setting is the year 2805.
Yeah.
Earth is silent. It's just this desolate brown wasteland. It's covered not in trees or mountains, but in these skyscrapers made of compressed garbage.
Humanity didn't just leave, did they? They fled.
They absolutely fled. 700 years before our movie starts, this mega corporation called By and Large B&L for short, basically evacuated the entire human population.
Onto these giant luxury starliners.
Exactly. The main one we see is called the Axiom. And you have to understand, the plan was supposed to be temporary.
Right. This wasn't a permanent exile. This was a vacation.
Correct. The pitch was, a 5-year cruise. Just go away for a little while, leave the mess, and we'll have millions of robots clean it all up. You'll come back to a sparkling paradise.
And these robots were the Wally units.
Yes. Waste allocation, load lifter, Earth class. They left millions of them behind. But the plan it failed. Catastrophically.
What went wrong?
The environment was just too toxic. The sheer scale of the cleanup was too massive. And so over the centuries, the robots all broke down. They were destroyed by the elements, rusted away. By the time our movie starts, every single one of them is dead.
Except one.
Except our guy, our protagonist.
He's the last functioning ghost in the machine.
He is. And because he's been alone for 700 years, he's developed what you might call a glitch.
He's developed a personality.
He has. He's curious. He collects these little human trinkets he finds in the trash, a Zippo lighter, a spork, old hubcaps, and he is profoundly, desperately lonely.
Which is such a human trait for a machine, isn't it? That loneliness.
It's the core of his character. And then one day, the catalyst arrives.
EV.
EV, the extraterrestrial vegetation evaluator. She's this sleek, high-tech probe sent to scan for any sign of photosynthesis, any sign of life.
And Wally, of course, just instantly falls in love.
Head over treads. He shows her this tiny little plant, a seedling he found growing in an old refrigerator, and that one discovery, that little green plant, triggers this massive chain reaction that takes them both off-planet and completely changes the fate of the entire human race.
It's a huge story. But I think the story behind the story is just as good. I want to start with the 1994 lunch, because I feel like this story is becoming a bit of a myth in animation circles.
Oh, it is. It's like the Last Supper of Pixar.
It really is, like a signing of the Declaration of Independence or something.
You really have to picture the scene to understand the stakes here. It's 1994. Toy Story is not even out yet. They're finishing it, but they have absolutely no idea if it's going to work.
Right, they're terrified.
The studio's future is completely unwritten. And the core brain trust, we're talking Andrew Stanton, John Lasseter, Pete Docter, and the late Joe Raft. They go to lunch at this little place called the Hidden City Cafe.
And they're thinking, okay, Toy Story might just flop, or even if it succeeds, what if we don't have a follow-up ready? Disney's just going to shut us down.
Exactly. They need a pipeline.
Hmm.
They need ideas. And in that one sitting, I mean, literally sketching on the back of napkins, they brainstorm the core concepts for A Bug's Life, monsters, ink,
Wow.
and Finding Nemo.
That's an absurd batting average. From one lunch. You're talking about billions and billions of dollars in box office revenue from one sandwich order.
It's unreal. But there was one more idea that didn't get made right away, an idea that came from Andrew Stanton. He just asked this simple question that kind of stuck with him for years.
What was the question?
He said, what if mankind had to leave Earth and somebody forgot to turn off the last robot?
Forgot to turn off the last robot. Wow, I mean, it's just such a sad, haunting image. It implies this total careless abandonment.
It does. And Stanton was apparently obsessed with the Robinson Crusoe archetype, you know, the idea of a character totally alone on a deserted island.
Or in this case, a deserted planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just surviving one day at a time, keeping this meticulous routine just to stay sane. And he realized a robot was the perfect vessel for this kind of story, specifically because it has a low-status job.
He's a garbage man.
He's a janitor. He cleans up our mess. And Stanton knew that if you give a character a really menial job, something they do dutifully, day in and day out, no matter what, the audience just instantly sympathizes with them.
You root for the underdog, the guy who just keeps working while the whole world is crumbling around him.
Yeah, you can't help it.
But the script didn't stay that simple. I was looking through the development notes, the old Wikipedia archives on the production, and the evolution of this story is just wild.
Oh, yeah.
The original title was Trash Planet.
Which is descriptive, I guess. Lacks a little of the poetry of WALL-E, maybe.
A little on the nose, yeah. But the thing that really blew my mind was the original concept for the humans.
The gels.
Yes, the
Yeah.
gels. In the movie, we all know the humans are these big, soft, babies in hover chairs. They're recognizable as us, just exaggerated. But that's not what they were at first.
Not at all. This is one of the great what-ifs in film history. Stanton's original idea was that living in zero gravity for 700 years wouldn't just make humans fat. It would fundamentally alter our biology.
How so?
We would devolve. We would become these transparent, gelatinous blobs, no bones, just green goo.
That sounds like a horror movie, like something David Cronenberg would direct, not Pixar.
It gets weirder. They didn't speak a real language. It was just this gibberish. They didn't have recognizable faces. And the twist ending was going to be very Planet of the Apes.
Okay, what's the twist?
WALL-E would lead this rebellion, tear down the whole system, confront the ruling class of these blob creatures, and then he discovered that these monsters, these gels, were actually the descendants of humanity.
So why'd they scrap that? I mean, it's dark, but that sounds like a killer twist. It's memorable.
It failed the empathy test. Stanton and the team realized that if the audience looks at a green blob, they don't see themselves, they just see an alien.
Right, there's no connection.
None. He needed the audience to look at the humans on screen and say, oh no, that's me, that's my cousin, that's all of us in 50 years if we don't get off the couch.
So they pivoted to the big babies concept.
Exactly. It kept the biological logic, the bone loss, the muscle atrophy, but it kept the humanity recognizable. It shifted the theme from like alien evolution to arrested development.
They're just toddlers who never learned to walk.
Which makes you want to help them, not fight them. It's a much more sympathetic idea.
There were other big changes too, right? I read about an earlier draft where WALL-E leads a full-on robot rebellion.
Yeah, kind of Spartacus rebellion. That was an idea for a while, where he'd rally all the defective robots on the Axiom to overthrow the humans. They eventually moved away from that to focus more on the love story and the idea of helping humanity, not fighting it.
And what about this cutscene? Something about a brain room and a reference to an old spy show.
Yes, a direct homage to the TV show Get Smart. There was a scene where Ayuto, the evil autopilot, goes into this private server room, his brain room, to watch old video logs of the Earth clean up. failing over the centuries.
And why cut that? It seems like it would explain his motivation.
It did, but they felt it gave away the mystery too early. They wanted the audience to realize the truth. The fact that Earth was never meant to be re-inhabited at the exact same moment the captain does. It's a much stronger narrative choice.
Keeps the tension high. Okay, I really want to get into the technical side of this film because when you watch Wall-E, it just looks different from other Pixar films. It doesn't look like Ratatouille or The Incredibles. It feels grittier.
It feels real.
It feels real in a way that animation usually doesn't.
And that is the result of a very specific and I'd imagine very difficult artistic choice. Stanton's goal was not to make it look like a cartoon. He wanted it to look like a sci-fi film shot on 70mm film stock in the 1970s.
So like 2001 or Star Wars or Alien.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And to get that look, they did something that was basically unprecedented in animation at the time. They brought in live-action heavyweights to be consultants. They hired Roger Deakins.
Okay, stop there. For anyone who doesn't know, Roger Deakins is the guy. He shot Blade Runner 2049, 1917, No Country for Old Men. He's an absolute legend of cinematography. So why bring a guy who films reality into a studio where you literally create reality on a computer?
To teach the computer how to make mistakes.
Mistakes. You usually pay people to avoid mistakes.
In animation, yes. Because computer animation, by its nature, is perfect. Everything is in focus. The lighting is mathematically precise. Every line is perfectly straight. Deakins came in and taught them that reality is messy, it's flawed. He introduced them to concepts like barrel distortion.
Okay, break that down for me. What is barrel distortion?
So if you imagine looking through an old physical camera lens, the glass isn't perfect. So the edges of the image tend to curve slightly outwards, like the staves of a barrel. It's a physical flaw in the manufacturing of the glass.
And Pixar did that.
Pixar literally built software to simulate that physical flaw in their virtual cameras. They also got obsessed with lens flare.
Right, the J.J. Abrams effect.
Yeah, but specifically, the kind of flare you get from anamorphic lenses, which were used all the time in the 70s, those long horizontal streaks of light. And they also worked heavily on something called racking focus.
What's that?
In a real movie, if a camera operator, a human being, is trying to shift focus from something in the background to Wall-E in the foreground, they don't hit it perfectly every time. They might overshoot the focus for a split second, then pull it back.
Okay.
Deakins taught the animators to put those tiny human errors into the animation.
So they literally animated the camera being bad at its job, just for a second.
They animated the humanity behind the camera. It creates this subconscious feeling that you're not just watching a render. You're watching footage filmed by a person standing in that trash heap, holding a heavy camera. It creates a sense of presence.
That explains the overall look of the Earth scenes. They're so bright, almost bleached out.
That was another Deakins note. He told them to bleach out the whites, make it look hot and dusty and hazy. It makes Wall-E feel small and vulnerable. And it creates this incredible contrast with the Axiom later on.
Right, the Axiom is the complete opposite.
It's cold, sterile, and the lighting is all artificial and sharp. The production notes say the inspiration for the Axiom's lighting came from concept art for Tomorrowland at Disney parks and the modern architecture of places like Shanghai and Dubai. It's too perfect, which makes it feel fake compared to the gritty reality of Earth.
And they deliberately avoided certain colors on Earth, too.
Yeah, they stayed away from yellows and greens almost entirely in the Earth palette. So that when you finally see the plant, that little green seedling, it just pops. It's the most vibrant thing you've seen in the entire movie. Your eye is just drawn to it.
That's brilliant. Let's talk about sound, because as we said, for the first act, there's basically no dialogue. Wall-E speaks in deeps and whirs. This puts a massive, massive burden on the sound design. If the sound fails, the movie is just boring.
Oh, absolutely. If the visuals are the body of this movie, the sound is its soul. And for that, they brought in another legend, Ben Burtt.
The guy who created R2-D2's voice and the lightsaber sound?
The father of modern sci-fi sound design. And for Wall-E, Burtt just went all out. He recorded something like 2,500 unique sound files for the film.
And that's a lot.
He said that's double the average number of sound files he would create for a Star Wars movie.
Wow. I looked up the Foley list, the list of everyday objects they use to make these futuristic sounds, and it is hilarious. It's like a scavenger hunt in a junk drawer.
It's pure, unadulterated creativity. What's your favorite?
Okay, Wall-E's movement. That distinctive, kind of struggling, revving sound when he drives around, it's not a computer synthesizer.
No, it's something mechanical and old.
It's a hand-cranked electrical generator from the 1950s that Ben Burtt found and bought on eBay. He just sat in a studio and cranked it.
Of course he did. It gives it that struggling physical quality. You can almost hear the gears grinding.
And when he's going fast, when he's really zipping around, that's the sound of an automobile self-starter.
Okay, that makes sense.
But my absolute favorite is EVE's plasma cannon. That pew sound.
The laser, yeah.
You expect it to be some high-tech digital effect. It's not. Bert hung a slinky from a ladder and hit it with a timpani stick.
No way. A slinky.
A slinky. And it works perfectly. It's so effective because it's organic. It resonates. Even the cockroach, how his little clicking sound is just a pair of handcuffs being clicked open and shut over and over.
And the wind. The sound of the wind on desolate earth.
That wasn't just any wind. Bert specifically went and recorded the wind at Niagara Falls to get that deep, rushing, empty sound.
And then there's the voice of Yuko, the villain. The ship's computer. That wasn't a voice actor at all, was it?
No, that was Macintalk, the old text-to-speech program that was built into Apple computers back in the 90s.
Which is such a brilliant choice. It creates a voice that is perfectly flat. It has rhythm, but there's no melody, zero emotion.
It reminds you of HAL 9000 from 2001, obviously, but also Stephen Hawking's synthesizer. It sounds purely logical.
Which makes his refusal to return to Earth that much more chilling. He isn't being evil in a mustache-twirling way. He's just running code. He has no malice, which makes him so much harder to negotiate with.
Okay, let's pivot to the characters themselves. Because designing a robot that can carry a movie without having a face like a human face with skin and muscles, that is a massive risk.
A huge risk. Stanton had this theory about robots in movies. He kind of categorized them. He said, you usually have your humans in metal suits. Think C-3PO or the Tin Man.
Right. They talk like people. They act like people. Stiff joints, but basically a human soul.
Exactly. Then you have your machines with function, like R2-D2 or Luxo Jr., the Pixar lamp. They're designed as tools first and characters second.
And he wanted Wall-E to be a tool.
A machine with function. He's a tractor. He's a trash compactor. He wasn't designed to be cute. He's designed to do a job. His proportions are industrial.
But he is cute. He's incredibly endearing. And it's all in the eyes.
The eyes are the masterstroke. The story goes that Stanton was at a baseball game, and he was just playing with a pair of binoculars. And he realized that just by tilting the barrels down, the binoculars looked sad.
And tilting them up, they looked curious.
Exactly. He realized he didn't need a mouth or a nose or eyebrows. He just needed lenses that could tilt.
It's the Buster Keaton effect.
It is. The great stone face. Keaton could break your heart without ever changing his facial expression just by how he held his head or slumped his shoulders. Wall-E is a silent film star.
And every other part of him has that functional logic. His arms are just on these tracks like an old inkjet printer. His treads are modeled on a wheelchair.
Yeah. Every part of him has a reason to exist, but the animation imbues all that function with pure spirit.
And then you have EVE, who is the complete opposite end of the technological spectrum.
If Wall-E is a rusty old tractor, EVE is a brand new iPod.
Literally. They actually called Jonathan Ive, the legendary head of design at Apple, to come to Pixar and consult on the designs.
They did, and you can see that Apple influence immediately. She is seamless. There are no visible screws or vents. It's just this perfect white, egg-like shell.
Stanton described her shape as an egg or an inverted manatee.
A manatee.
Yeah, he wanted something that looked graceful and almost aquatic as it floated through the air. But notice her eyes. They aren't lenses like Wall-E's. They're just blue LED pixels.
Like a light, bright toy.
Exactly. They just flicker on and off. It's a great little detail that shows she's digital, while Wall-E is analog. She scans, she processes, he feels.
And that contrast is what drives the romance. The rusty, dirty, hard-working little guy, and the sleek, sterile, destructive probe.
So, why? Why anchor this entire post-apocalyptic sci-fi epic with the musical? Hello, Dolly.
It seems so random, doesn't it? A 1969 musical starring Barbra Streisand.
It seems incredibly random. Of all the movies that could possibly survive the apocalypse, why that one?
It's a personal touch from Stanton's own life. He had played the character Barnaby Tucker in his high school production of the play, so he knew the song, Put On Your Sunday Clothes.
Okay.
And the lyrics of that song are all about getting out there, about seeing a world beyond your small town of Yonkers. And he realized that's exactly how Wall-E feels. He's stuck in this garbage heap, but he's dreaming of out there. The song becomes his anthem for hope.
And the holding hand scene.
It only takes a moment. That's the clip that Wall-E watches over and over and over on that little screen. And it literally teaches him the physical language of love.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand the words, he's a robot, but he understands the gesture. He sees two beings connecting, so he mimics it.
This all leads to what you called the philosophical core of the movie. Stanton had a specific phrase for this central theme.
He did. He said the theme of the movie is irrational love defeats life's programming.
Let's unpack that. That sounds like the thesis statement for the whole film.
It really is. Think about it. Everyone and everything in this movie is programmed. Wally has a directive, compact trash. EVE has a directive, find plant. The captain has a directive, stay on the ship, everything is fine. Otto have a directive, A113, do not return to Earth under any circumstances.
Logic dictates they all stick to the plan.
Right. But love is illogical. It's irrational.
So when Wally grabs onto the outside of Heavy's rocket and flies into space, that's a glitch in his programming.
It's a massive error. It's suicide. There's absolutely no logical reason for a garbage robot to leave his designated zone and cling to a spaceship.
Okay.
But he does it because of love. And that one irrational act breaks the entire loop. It's what wakes EVE up to her own feelings. It's what wakes the captain up.
So the movie is arguing that to be truly alive, whether you're a human or a robot, you have to be willing to do the irrational thing for someone else.
Exactly. It frames love not just as a warm, fuzzy emotion, but as an act of rebellion against the status quo.
That's beautiful. But let's play devil's advocate for a minute here, because not everyone thinks the movie is perfect, especially structure-wise. We have to talk about the two halves debate.
Ah, yes. This is probably the most common critique you see in the reviews and the retrospectives online. The idea that WALL-E is really two different movies that have been mashed together.
Right. Act 1 is this absolute masterpiece of visual storytelling on Earth. It's silent, it's atmospheric, it's moody, it's artistic. And then Act 2 is this frantic chase scene on the Axiom with, fat people falling out of chairs and a lot of slapstick humor.
Some critics, like the ones we saw in the Channel Awesome transcript, they feel that shift is really jarring. They argue that the second half just becomes a standard Pixar movie, and it loses the artistic bravery of that incredible opening.
It goes from being 2001, a space odyssey, to being Monsters, Inc. very, very quickly. Do you buy that criticism?
I see the point. I understand where they're coming from, but I disagree with the conclusion that it ruins the film. I call it the Lilo and Stitch effect.
What's that?
It's where one part of the movie, in this case the grounded, realistic part on Earth, is so uniquely brilliant that it makes the more conventional sci-fi part look a little silly by comparison. But narratively, you need the axiom. You can't tell the story without it.
Why not? Why couldn't we just have a whole movie with Wall-E on Earth?
Because you need contrast.
Yeah.
You can't appreciate the beautiful silence of Earth without the chaotic noise of the ship. You can't understand the value of that one real plant without seeing a world that has totally replaced nature with plastic and screens. The axiom is the antagonist as an environment. It has to be loud and bright and annoying because it represents everything humanity needs to escape from.
That's a fair point. If the Axiom was peaceful and wonderful, there'd be no reason for them to want to leave.
Exactly. There'd be no stakes.
Speaking of the Axiom, we need to talk more about the humans and that really controversial choice to use live-action actors for all the historical footage.
Fred Willard, playing Shelby Forthright, the CEO of By and Large.
It's the only time we see a real photographic human face in the whole movie. Him and the extras in the old commercials. Why do that? Why not just animate him like everyone else?
To prove devolution. This was a crucial design decision. If the historical humans from the past were animated cartoons, and the future humans were also animated cartoons, the audience might just think, oh, okay, the art style changed, or that's just how people look in this universe.
Right. The impact would be lost.
Completely. By using a real human for the past, Fred Willard, flesh and blood, and then showing the current humans as these blobby, cartoonish, baby-like figures, the contrast just hits you in the gut. You see exactly what has been lost over 700 years. You see the biological decay in a really stark way.
And the physiology of the future humans, the big babies, that was actually based on sea lions.
It was, yeah. The animators went to aquariums and watched hours of footage of sea lions to understand how blubber moves and shifts in a low-gravity or microgravity environment. And they consulted with NASA scientists about bone density loss. It's obviously exaggerated for comedic effect, but it is rooted in real medical fact.
Use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it on a species-wide scale. If you don't use your legs for 7 centuries, you lose them.
This brings us to the social commentary, because you just can't talk about Wall-E without talking about consumerism. It is baked into the very DNA of the setting.
It's impossible to ignore. I mean, you have, by and large, a single corporation that has literally replaced the government. The CEO is essentially the president of Earth. Their logo is on the money, the food, the ships, the buildings. It's everywhere.
And his advice during the apocalypse is stay the course.
Which is such a loaded phrase politically, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the critique goes deeper than just corporations are bad. It's really about passivity.
The lunch in a cup scene.
Exactly. The humans have traded all of their agency for convenience. They have everything they could possibly want instantly. They have a septuacentennial cupcake in a cup. But they're not happy.
No, they're just distracted. They're talking to people on screens who are sitting right next to them.
It's frighteningly prophetic looking back on it now.
It really is. But what's funny is Andrew Stanton claims in interviews that he wasn't really trying to be political. He says he just needed a logical reason for the planet to be empty so the robot could be alone.
And he picked trash.
He picked trash because it was visually interesting, easy to animate as cubes, and it clearly explained why everyone would have to leave. He claims the environmentalism was just a plot device.
I find that a little hard to believe. You don't accidentally make a movie that serves as a blistering attack on the collapse of global capitalism and the environmental crisis.
Well, you know, death of the author and all that. Once the art is out there, the audience decides what it means. And the critics certainly saw it as political.
Oh, for sure. On the left, it was seen as this powerful environmental manifesto. But what's really interesting is that some conservatives actually defended the film.
Really? I know the National Review absolutely hated it.
They did. They called it Malthusian fear-mongering and leftist propaganda. They thought it was a direct attack on the American way of life on consumption.
So what was the conservative defense? How do you get there?
Well, other conservative thinkers, like a writer named Patrick J. Ford, argued that if you look closely, WALL-E is actually deeply conservative in its core values.
Oh, okay, explain that.
Look at the values it champions at the end. Hard work, stewardship of the land, taking personal responsibility. The nuclear family, with Wally and Eve as the parents of a new world. The villain is a centralized automated bureaucracy, the ship's computer, that provides this cradle-to-grave nanny state where no one have to work or think for themselves.
And the hero is a blue-collar guy who just wants to clean up his front yard.
And protect his partner and their home. From that perspective, it's a story about rejecting big government and corporate monopoly in favor of individual grit and traditional values.
That's a fascinating flip. It really shows that the story is strong enough to hold all these multiple conflicting interpretations. It's not just a lecture, it's a real story.
It's a mirror. You see what you fear reflected in it. If you fear corporations running amok, you see that. If you fear an overbearing state, you see that.
Let's touch on the religious allegories, because once someone points them out to you, you can't unsee them. Let's start with Adam and Eve.
It's right there in the names, isn't it? Wally is the lonely Adam, the first man on this new, or I guess old, world. He's naming the animals, or in his case, the sporks and the Zippo lighters. He's organizing his little garden of treasures. And then Eve is sent from the heavens to be his partner.
And the plant is the olive branch.
Exactly. Which makes the axiom Noah's Ark. It's a vessel that's preserving the last remnants of life during a great flood. But instead of a flood of water, it's a flood of garbage. And Eve is the dove.
She goes down to earth and returns with the olive branch, the plant, to prove that the waters have receded and that life can begin again.
It just adds this mythic biblical weight to the whole story. It's not just about two cute robots falling in love. It's about the genesis of a new world.
And you can even see other myths in there, too.
Oh, for sure. Wally is also Prometheus. He's the one who brings the fire, the spark of life, the plant, back to a humanity that's been living in darkness. He even rolls a stone like Sisyphus, compacting those trash cubes forever. But unlike Sisyphus, his work eventually has meaning. He saves everyone.
So let's look at the legacy. The movie comes out in 2008. It's a massive, massive hit.
Huge. It made something like $23 million on its opening day alone. It was critical gold and commercial gold, a rare combination.
But then the Oscars happened.
The infamous snub.
It won Best Animated Feature, of course. That was a lock. But everyone, and I mean everyone, thought it had a real shot at a Best Picture nomination. It was on every single critic's top 10 list that year.
And it didn't get nominated. And this caused a genuine uproar in the film community. That, along with the snub of The Dark Knight in the same year, was seen as definitive proof that the Academy was out of touch.
They saw animation and superhero movies as lesser art forms.
As kids' stuff. And the backlash was so strong that they actually changed the rules because of it.
Right. What did they do?
The very next year, the Academy expanded the Best Picture category from 5 nominees to 10. And they explicitly said they were doing it to allow for more diverse genres to be represented. So if you see films like Up or Toy Story 3 or Black Panther getting nominated for Best Picture in later years, you can thank Wall-E. It helped break that glass ceiling,
And now it's also in the Criterion Collection.
which is a huge deal. That's a seal of approval that's usually reserved for high art cinema, Kurosawa, Bergman, Fellini. For a long time, the idea of a Disney or Pixar movie being included was unthinkable.
So it's the first Pixar film to get that honor.
It is, and it really validated the idea that a kids' movie could also be a vital piece of cinema history. It blurred that line between content and art.
I think it's the silence that does it, that first act. It feels timeless in a way that other, more dialogue-heavy films don't.
It respects its audience.
Yeah.
It assumes you're smart enough to follow a story without having everything explained to you. It doesn't treat kids like they're stupid,
Yeah.
and adults appreciate that.
So here we are, looking back on it nearly 2 decades later. Where are we? Are we living on the axiom now?
That's the scary part, isn't it? When this movie came out in 2008, the iPhone had existed for exactly 1 year. We were just at the very beginning of staring at screens all day.
Right.
Now, we order our food from apps. We communicate via text with people who are sitting in the same room as us. We have lunch in a cup in the form of Soylent and meal replacement shakes. We are much, much closer to those hover chairs now than we were then.
Septuacentennial cupcake in a cup.
We're pretty much there. And the algorithms that run our social media feeds, that's AUUTO. It's a program designed to keep us happy, keep us scrolling, keep us from looking up at the stars or talking to our neighbors.
The captain has that amazing line where he finally stands up and says, "I don't want to survive, I want to live."
That is the thesis of the entire film. Survival is safe, survival is comfortable. The axiom of survival perfected. But living requires risk. It requires getting your hands dirty. It requires planting a seed in the mud and hoping against hope that it grows.
It requires dancing with a fire extinguisher in the vacuum of space.
It goes right back to that irrational love idea. The logical thing to do is sit in the chair and eat the cupcake. The human thing to do is to stand up, fall down, and try to walk again.
That's a good place to leave it, I think.
I think so.
So as you're listening to this, here's your takeaway. Look at your own life for a second. Look at the algorithms that are probably feeding you this very podcast right now. Look at all the convenience that surrounds you. And ask yourself, what is your plant?
What's the one little thing that's going to make you wake up?
What is the fragile, real, inconvenient thing in your life that is worth fighting for? Find it. And then maybe, just maybe, turn off the screen for a little while.
Stay curious.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.